What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another Unpopular Opinion, and today we're going to be taking a look at the very overlooked and sometimes forgotten Indiana Jones movie, Temple of Doom.
That's why they call it the jungle, sweetheart.
Now, it's no secret that I love the Indiana Jones movies. Indiana is my childhood hero, and the franchise has had a huge impact on my life. In fact, my first Unpopular Opinion video was about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, so you should check that out. So naturally, when Disney decided to make a fifth movie, I was extremely worried. And in all honesty, I didn't see Dial of Destiny. They already butchered Star Wars, so I couldn't bear to see them do that to Indy. And everything I've read about that movie and all the people who said they saw it, they told me horrible things. So instead of focusing on that monstrosity, we're going to pretend it doesn't exist. And we're going to be talking about the very underrated and underappreciated Temple of Doom. Now, Temple of Doom has Indiana Jones fans split. The opinions on it are mixed, but overall, when discussing the franchise, it tends to be forgotten. However, I happen to love Temple of Doom, and I think it's a fantastic movie and one of the better films in the franchise. The unfortunate thing is, it's trapped in the shadow of Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade. So it's like the middle child. Raiders was an epic quest that introduced us to the character, and The Last Crusade was the amazing conclusion and the personal soul-searching adventure with Indiana Jones. That is until Crystal Skull came out. Now, for the longest time, Temple of Doom was actually my favorite Indiana Jones movie, but Kingdom of the Crystal Skull recently took that title. But I still think Temple of Doom is one of the best movies in the franchise. I rank it as the second best. Now, I know some people who just heard me say Crystal Skull is the best will disqualify my opinion and say I have no credibility to review this movie, but let's get into why I think Temple of Doom is amazing. In discussing the plot, the movie opens up with Indiana Jones in an upscale nightclub in Shanghai, China. He survives an assassination attempt and manages to escape from Chinese gangsters. However, his plane is actually owned by the crime boss who he thwarted, so they sabotage the flight. He survives the plane crash and encounters an impoverished, famine-struck village in British-controlled India. He learns that an evil cult known as the Thuggies stole their children and took a sacred stone from them that contained the power of
Fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory.
So Indy agrees to help them get it back, and as a result, he's trapped in this temple after he's caught trying to steal the stones. Firstly, it's undeniable that this film is the most unique Indiana Jones movie. The other three movies feature Indy on a quest to reach a specific artifact of religious supernatural significance before his enemies do. These quests involve Indy navigating ancient ruins, solving puzzles, and using a lot of his archaeology skills. And this movie doesn't really have that. In fact, this wasn't a quest for Indy at all. The adventure in this movie is Indiana Jones is trapped in a temple full of devil-worshipping, human-sacrificing thugs, and he has to escape with his life. And the tone of this film is significantly darker than Raiders of the Lost Ark. And the other movies for that matter. Not just visually, but the content as well. The villains in this movie were unquestionably the most evil of the franchise, and they pose the biggest threat to Indy, which causes some seriously intense dark moments. For example, the human sacrifice, where the man gets his heart ripped out of his chest, the scene where Indy's flogged with his own whip and is forced to drink this magic potion that turns him evil. That was extremely dark and dire. Seeing Indiana Jones transform from his normal self to a cruel, evil version is so dark, and that lends itself very well to the action in this movie. Another aspect that I loved in this movie is how it showed us a different side of Indiana. In the first movie, we only see him in either a classroom setting or in the field, but this movie shows us an Indy that we've never seen before. The opening scene where he was in an upscale nightclub wearing a nice tux was something straight out of a James Bond movie. I mean, the opening credits had an intro title song, straight up James Bond. We see him mingling with socialites, and we see him all charming and debonair while he faces off against the Chinese mob boss, which was really cool. It also shows us a compassionate side of him due to his relationship with Short Round. We see the paternal nature of Indiana Jones throughout the movie.
Wow, holy smoke! Crash landing!
Indiana is the father figure to the young Short Round, and that makes for many great moments.
I'm all right, kid.
And speaking of Short Round, he was just awesome. For real. He was a great character and brought a lot of smiles to this movie.
You know nuts. He's crazy.
Also, Short Round contributed a lot to the action and fight sequences, which was great.
Okie dokie, Dr. Jones, hold on to your potatoes.
Now, in terms of action, this movie was full of it. Temple of Doom was a roller coaster of excitement, and I literally mean that considering there was an epic mine car chase sequence.
Quit fooling around with that kid! Get down the cart, now!
The opening scene was a nail-biting escape, which led to a car chase and shootout.
Short Round, step on it!
Seeing Jones go through the streets of a Chinese city felt really cool and almost like a detective movie. But the fight sequences throughout were amazing, like the fight on the sacrifice altar, the rock crusher fight. All of those were nail-biting and heart-pounding. And the battle on the bridge was just the cherry on top in terms of thrills. Not to mention, Spielberg did a very good job directing this movie. The camera angles, the lighting, the editing were on point. Also, the special effects were really good and still hold up today for the most part. I know some shots look a little fuzzy, but for the most part, it looks pretty good. Another really great aspect of this movie was how it focuses on a part of the world and a religion that's very foreign and unknown to most Americans. Indian history and mythology is actually very cool and has an exotic appeal to it, so when Indiana Jones dipped his toes into that territory, that just added another fascination factor to the movie. The other movies feature things that most people in the Western world are already very familiar with. The first and third movie feature relics that pretty much everyone has heard of, the Ark of the Covenant and the Grail. They're biblically relevant, and those adventures take place in lands that have captured public interest for generations, like Egypt, Italy, and the Middle East. The fourth movie also features things that people are slightly familiar with, Mesoamerican mythology, mixed with the question of did aliens help primitive people create civilization. So when Temple of Doom goes to India and features figures from Hinduism, that's very fascinating, and it adds to the unique nature of the film. I know that drew a lot of criticism from people when they said it misrepresents the culture, but I don't agree with that, and I think that's an unwarranted anger. And lastly, I'd be foolish not to mention our main villain, Mola Ram.
You will become a true believer.
He is, without a doubt, the most evil villain of the franchise. He's in charge of the thuggies and performs the human sacrifices. He orchestrates the mines in which child slaves work, and his mission is to worship the Hindu goddess Kali. He plans to spread the influence of the thuggies and dominate the world with the help of Kali.
We will overrun the Muslims, then the Christian God will be cast down and forgotten.
That's some evil stuff right there. He also takes a direct hands-on approach with fighting Indy, as opposed to having his men take care of him while he's far away from the action. Mola Ram is on the front lines directing his men. And this is also the only movie where Indiana faces off against the villain in a fistfight at the climax of the movie, and that fight was really intense. This man just oozes villainy and evil.
Soon, Kali Ba will rule the world.
And before I close, I just want to say that this movie does work as a prequel, and I think it's pretty cool. The only thing I can legitimately complain about is when Indy said this in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I don't believe in magic, a lot of superstitious hocus pocus.
And yet the year before, he's trying to collect magic rocks and witnesses witchcraft being performed. I don't know, maybe he's just saying that to shut Brody up. Also, I want to mention Indy's love interest, Willie Scott. A lot of people really hated her and found her annoying. I personally didn't, and honestly, she looked really good in this movie. In terms of physical beauty, I personally think she's an upgrade from Marion Ravenwood. No disrespect, but yeah, Willie was hot.
I could have been your greatest adventure.
So in conclusion, Temple of Doom was a very fun movie that featured amazing action, awesome special effects, and a great villain. This was by far the most unique and definitely the most dark Indiana Jones movie. It was really cool how in this movie, Indy wasn't on a quest to discover ancient relics of religious significance. It's more of a struggle to escape an evil place with his life. The desire for an ancient artifact does play into it a little, and he wouldn't have gone to the temple if the stones weren't his objective, but he's trying to steal something that's already been found and in use for centuries, unlike the other movies. So yeah, I think this movie was great. It's one of the better Indiana Jones films, and I think it's very unfortunate that the fans tend to overlook this movie. It was truly amazing, and I love it very much. Well, guys, that's all I have for you. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop a like and hit the subscribe button. Also, follow me on Instagram. That will be linked below. Pretty much any and all love is appreciated. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next Unpopular Opinion.
What a vivid imagination.